Hello and welcome to the Story Shed, and it's dark and rainy outside, but it's relatively warm and light in here with the fantastic lights. Hey, look at that. I have a story here that was collected by the Grimm Brothers. I like their stories. They went around Germany collecting stories that they could present to us. And this one is one I don't think I'd ever heard before, but people have said it's very good. So I thought I'd have a go at it. It's called Snow White and Rose Red, and it's not the usual Snow White story that we're all familiar with. So if you just relax and sit back, I will begin. There was once a poor widow who lived in a lonely cottage. In front of the cottage was a garden where stood 2 rose trees, one of which had white roses and the other red roses. She had 2 children who were like the 2 trees, and one was called Snow White and the other Rose Red. They were as good and happy, as busy and cheerful as ever 2 children could be. Only Snow White was more quiet and gentle. Rose Red liked better to run about the meadows and fields, seeking flowers and catching butterflies. But Snow White sat at home with her mother and helped her with the housework, or read to her when there was nothing else to do. The 2 children were so fond of each other that they always held each other by the hand when they were out together. And when Snow White said, "We will not leave each other," Rose Red answered, "Never so long as we live." And their mother would add, "What one has she must share with the other." That's nice. They often ran about the forest alone and gathered red berries, and no beasts did them any harm, but they came to them closely and trustfully. The little hare would eat a cabbage leaf out of their hands, the deer grazed by their side, the stag leapt merrily by them, and the birds sat still upon the boughs and sang the songs they knew. Nothing bad ever happened to them. If they'd stayed too late in the forest and night came on, they laid themselves down near one another on the moss and slept until the morning came. And their mother knew that she was not to worry about them. Once, when they spent the night in the wood and the dawn had roused them, they saw a beautiful child in a shining white dress sitting near their bed. He got up and looked quite kindly at them, but said nothing and went into the forest. And when they looked around, they found that they'd been sleeping quite close to a precipice, and would certainly have fallen into it if the darkness they'd gone a few paces further. And their mother told them that it must have been an angel who watched over good children. Now, Snow White and Rose Red kept their mother's little cottage so neat that it was a pleasure to look inside it. In the summer, Rose Red took care of the house, and every morning put a wreath of flowers by her mother's bed before she awoke, in which was a rose from each tree. In the winter, Snow White lit the fire and hung the kettle on the hob. The kettle was of brass and shone like gold, so brightly was it polished. In the evening, when the snowflakes fell, Mother would say, "Go, Snow White, and bolt the door." And then they sat around the hearth, and the mother took her spectacles and read aloud out of a large book. And the 2 girls listened as they sat and spun. And close by them lay a lamb upon the floor, and behind them on a perch sat a white dove with its head hidden beneath its wing. One evening, as they were sitting comfortably together, someone knocked at the door, as if he wished to be let in. The mother said, "Quick, Rose Red, open the door. It might be a traveller who's seeking shelter." Rose Red went and pushed back the bolt, thinking that it was a poor man. But it wasn't. It was a bear that stretched his broad black head within the door. Rose Red screamed and sprang back. The lamb bleated, the dove fluttered, and Snow White hid herself behind her mother's bed. But the bear began to speak and said, "Do not be afraid. I will do you no harm. I am half frozen. I only want to warm myself by you for a little while." "Poor bear," said the mother. "Lie down by the fire. Only take care you do not burn your coat." Then she called to Snow White and Rose Red and said, "Come out. The bear will do you no harm. He means as well." So they both came out, and with time the lamb and the dove came nearer as well, and were not afraid of him. The bear said, "Here, children, knock the snow from my coat." And so they took a broom and swept the bear's fur clean, and he stretched himself by the fire and growled contentedly and comfortably. It was not long before they all felt at home with one another, and the girls played tricks with the clumsy guest. They tucked his hair with their hands, put their feet upon his back, and rolled him about, or they took a small hazel stick and gently beat him. And when he growled, they laughed. But the bear took it all in good fun, only when they were too rough, he called out, "Leave me alive, children." When it was bedtime and the others went to bed, the mother said to the bear, "You can lie there by the fire, and then you will be safe from the cold and the bad weather." As soon as the day dawned, the two children let him out, and he trotted across the snow into the forest. So from then, the bear came every evening at the same time, laid himself down by the fire, and let the children amuse themselves with him as much as they liked. And they got so used to him that the doors were never fastened until the bear had arrived. When spring came and all outside was green, the bear said to Snow White one morning, "Now I must go away and cannot come back for the whole of the summer." "Oh, where are you going there, dear bear?" asked Snow White. "I must go into the forest and guard my treasures from the wicked dwarfs. In the winter, when the earth is frozen hard, they have to stay below ground and cannot work their way through. But now, when the sun has thawed and warmed the earth, they break through it and come out to pry and steal. And what once gets into their hands and into their caves never sees the light of day again." Snow White was sorry to see him go, and as she unbolted the door for him and the bear was hurrying out, he caught against the bolt, and a piece of his hairy coat was torn off, and it seemed for a moment to Snow White as if she'd seen gold shining through it, but she was not sure about it. The bear ran away quickly and was soon out of sight behind the trees. Now, a short time after that, the mother sent her children into the forest to get firewood. There they found a big tree which lay felled on the ground, and close by the trunk something was jumping backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards in the grass. But they could not make out what it was. When they came nearer, they saw a dwarf with an old withered face and a snow-white beard a yard long. The end of the beard was caught in a crevice in the tree, and the little fellow was jumping about like a dog tied to a rope, as if he didn't know what to do. He glared at the girls with his fiery red eyes and cried, "Why do you stand there? Can you not come here and help me?" "What are you up to, little man?" asked Rose Red. "You stupid prying goose," answered the dwarf. "I was going to split the tree to get a little wood for cooking. The little bit of food we folk get is immediately burned up with heavy logs. We do not swallow so much as you coarse Greedy folk. I'd just driven a wedge safely in, and everything was going as I wished. But the cursed wedge was too smooth, and suddenly sprang out, and the tree closed so quickly that I could not pull out my beautiful white beard. So now it's stuck fast, and I cannot get away. And the silly, sleek, milk-faced things laugh. Oh, how odious you are. The children tried very hard, but they could not pull the beard out. It was caught too fast. I will run and fetch someone, said Rose Red. You senseless goose, snarled the dwarf. Why should you fetch someone? You're already too many for me. Can you not think of something better? Oh, don't be impatient, said Snow White. I will help you. And at that she pulled out her scissors from her pocket and cut off the end of his beard. As soon as the dwarf felt himself free, he laid hold of a bag which lay amongst the roots of the trees, and which was full of gold, and lifted it up, grumbling to himself. Uncouth people, to cut off a piece of my fine beard! Bad luck to you! And then he swung the bag upon his back and went off without even looking back at the children. Some time afterwards, Snow White and Rose Red went to catch a fish for supper. As they came near the brook, they saw something that looked like a large grasshopper jumping towards the water, as if it was going to leap in. They ran to it and found it was the dwarf. Where are you going? Said Rose Red. You surely don't want to go into the water. I am not such a fool, cried the dwarf. Don't you see that the accursed fish wants to pull me in? The little man had been sitting there fishing, and unluckily the wind had tangled up his beard with the fishing line. A moment later, a fish made a bite, and the feeble creature had not strength to pull it out. The fish had the upper hand and pulled the dwarf towards him. He held on to all the reeds and rushes, but it was of little good, for he was forced to follow the movements of the fish, and was in urgent danger of being dragged into the water. The girls had come just in time. They held him fast and tried to free his beard from the line, but all in vain. Beard and line were entangled fast together. There was nothing to do but to bring out the scissors and cut the beard, whereby a small part of it was lost. When the dwarf saw this, he screamed out, Is that civil, you toadstool, to disfigure a man's face? Was it not enough to clip off the end of my beard? Now you've cut off the very best part of it. I cannot let myself be seen by people. I wish you'd been made to run the soles off your shoes. Then he took out a sack of pearls which lay in the rushes, and without another word he dragged it away and disappeared behind a stone. Snow White and Rose Red went home, and when they got back their mother sent the two children to the town to buy needles and thread and laces and ribbons. The road went over a heath upon which huge pieces of rock lay strewn about. There they noticed a large bird hovering in the air, flying slowly round and round above them, and then it sank lower and lower and settled near a rock not far away. Immediately they heard a loud, piteous cry. They ran up and with horror saw that the eagle had seized their old friend the dwarf and was going to carry him off. The children, full of pity, at once took hold of the little man and pulled against the eagle so long and tugged that at last the eagle let him go. As soon as the dwarf had recovered from his first fright, he cried out with his shrill voice, "Could you not have done it more carefully? You dragged at my brown coat so that it's all torn and full of holes, you clumsy creatures." Then he took up a sackful of precious stones and slipped away again under the rock into his hole. The girls, who by this time were used to his ingratitude, went on their way and did their business in town. As they crossed the heath again on their way home, they surprised the dwarf, who had emptied out his bag of precious stones in a clean spot, and had not thought that anybody would be coming this way so late. The evening sun shone upon the brilliant stones. They glistened and sparkled with so many colours, so beautifully, that the children stood still and stared at them. "Why do you stand gaping there?" cried the dwarf, and his ashen grey face became copper red with rage. He was still cursing when a loud growling was heard, and a big black bear came trotting towards them out of the forest. The dwarf sprang up in fright, but he could not reach his cave, for the bear was already close and blocking his escape. Then, in the dread of his heart, he cried, "Dear Mr. Bear, spare me. I will give you all my treasures. Look, the beautiful jewels lying there. Grant me my life. What do you want with such a tiny, small, slender little fellow as I? You would not feel me between your teeth. Come, take these two wicked girls. They are tender morsel for you, fat as young quails. More than one mouthful, I'm sure. For mercy's sake, eat them." The bear took no heed of his words, but gave the wicked creature a single blow with his paw, and the dwarf did not move again. The girls had run away, but the bear called to them, "Snow White and Rose Red, do not be afraid. Wait, I will come with you." Then they recognized his voice and waited. And when he came up to them suddenly, his bearskin fell away, and he stood there, a handsome man clothed all in gold. "I am a king's son," he said, "and I was bewitched by that wicked dwarf who had stolen my treasures. I had to run about the forest as a savage bear until I was freed by his death. Now he has got his well-deserved punishment." Snow White was married to him, and Rose Red to his brother, and they divided between them the great treasure which the dwarf had gathered together in his cave. The old mother lived peacefully and happily with her children for many, many years. She took the two rose trees with her, and they stood before her window, and every year had the most beautiful roses, white and red. And that's the end of this story of Snow White and Rose Red. And I hope you enjoyed it. Please let me know if you did, or if you didn't, at thestoryshedblog@gmail.com. That's thestoryshedblog@gmail.com. I think we might have one more story from the Grimm Brothers tomorrow. And after that, we have a special guest with a special story that she can tell straight from her head. She doesn't have to read it. She remembered it from when she was a little girl, and that's some time ago. So look forward to that. Again, we also have the thestoryshedblog.com. That's a blog kind of website thing. Hopefully we'll be putting up some story prompts. And after story 50, I will be using a special set of cards that's put out by a company called Grimm & Co. They're kind of prompt cards. So you take the words and you choose them, like we were doing with the Dragon Week thing and the clown story, and you make up your own story. So it's a special set of cards for doing that. And for a few stories, I'm going to be using them to make up my own stories to read to you, my gift to you, and I hope you like it, and I hope that you share it, and I also hope that at some point in time you consider subscribing to the channel. But in the meantime, you all take care of yourselves, and bye bye for now. Bye bye. Bye. Bye bye.